US elections 2012. This is the most important issue when deciding whether to vote for Romney or Obama. This is a polar chart showing Arctic sea ice volume between 1979 and 2012. Each line represents the average for a decade. The purple line is the average between 1980 and 1989. So we can see that each decade the amount of ice at the Arctic has been reducing. And if we look at now, that's the red line, we can see that within a few years there will be no ice at the Arctic. So this diagram shows the extent of drought in the US and how it's affected most of the US. And I know this has led to your crops being severely damaged. Now, part of the reason of this drought is because of climate change. But that's not what I'm going to prove to you now. What I'm going to show you now is that this type of drought is going to become a lot more frequent, a lot more regular, a lot more normal. Now, as you know, in the US, heat waves often cause droughts. So the drought we're having now is very likely because of the heat wave. This graph here shows how we can compare extreme weather with how often it occurs. The axis at the bottom shows the extremity of the weather. 0 is normal weather, and as we move to the right we get more extreme weather, and the numbers show how extreme the weather is. And we can see that at a temperature anomaly of 3, the chances of that type of weather happening, that extreme hot weather happening, was 0.01, which is the same as 1 in every 100 years. So that was in the decade between 1953 and 1963. Now you might ask whether the probability of a weather event or weather events should follow a Bell distribution graph like this. And the answer to that is, well, this is the actual data. The jagged line here is the actual data, and you can see the actual data is following this bell curved graph. So let's just watch the Earth warm up over the last half century and watch what happens. Okay, we can see that the Earth has warmed up, and if we look at the temperature anomaly, standard deviation of 3, which I said could be an extreme heat event which would normally happen once every 100 years. So if we follow the graph up and then go across, we can see now that the frequency of this temperature anomaly has increased, and that means that something which was happening only every 100 years is happening more frequently. It has become more normal, and we can see some of those extreme weather events happening today. As the world continues to warm due to global warming, then this bell-shaped curve will continue to move to the right. As you know, at the top of the bell curve, this is what is normal. So when the top of the bell curve is above 3, then something which used to happen only once every 100 years, an extreme heat event, for example, will be the norm. That'll be normal weather. From this, we can conclude that not too far in the distant future, crop failure will become normal in the US. So you might be asking, well, what has this got to do with politics? Well, actually, it's got everything to do with politics. Because if you vote for a party which believes in business as normal, and you continue to burn coal and oil and gas as you are doing, you're not sending the right signals out to the rest of the world. America needs to be a leader on this. You can't solve this problem alone, and yet the problem is going to directly affect you soon, and is already affecting you now. In front of me here, I have the 2012 Republican Party of Texas report of Platform Committee and Rules Committee. 2012 State Republican Party Platform Preamble. If I go right down to the bottom very quickly. Okay, here is the energy policy. And Texas is a very influential state, and I think Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney would be quite happy to go along with an energy policy like this, which will end up being a total disaster for your environment and your climate. Just a few little things here. Energy strategy, we encourage a comprehensive energy policy, but then it goes on to say, but not restricted by overzealous environmental activism. I guess that's people like me. Under alternative energy sources, we encourage, and then it goes on to say, coal-fired plants. Well, coal-fired plants, they produce more carbon dioxide than the other types of fossil fuels, which is going to lead to more global warming. Government restrictions. We support the immediate removal of government barriers to free market solutions on drilling and production. We support the elimination of the Department of Energy. We support the freedom to continue to use and manufacture incandescent light bulbs. We support the immediate approval and construction of the Keystone XL and other pipelines. We support the immediate resumption of deepwater drilling and the production in the Gulf of Mexico. We support land drilling and the production operations, including hydraulic fracturing. So basically, the energy policy in this report has no regard for the environment or the climate whatsoever. There is no talk of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If we continue to pump millions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, global warming will continue and have a huge negative impact on our ecosystem. So whatever you do this time round, don't vote Republican. Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney just do not get climate change.